It started with a sparkle and ended with whispers echoing through Buckingham Palace. At first glance, it looked like just another royal banquet. Glittering chandeliers, designer gowns, the familiar smiles. But this time something was different. All eyes turned toward Duchess Sophie, not because of her charm, but because of what she was wearing. The aquamarine tiara perched on her head wasn't just breathtaking, it was symbolic. That dazzling blue crown carried a message the palace couldn't ignore. A message that, for the first time, seemed to challenge Queen Camilla's quiet control over royal appearances. Insiders say you could feel the tension the moment Sophie walked in, confident, poised, and seemingly untouchable. To the public, it was a fashion moment. But to those inside royal walls, it was something else entirely. A silent power play. A reminder that royal influence doesn't always come from a throne. Sometimes it comes from the sparkle of a single jewel. And behind that glittering moment lies a story that may redefine who truly holds power in the modern monarchy. The cameras flashed as Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, stepped into the grand ballroom, the kind of royal entrance that silences a room before applause even starts. Her gown shimmered in pale blue silk, but it was the tiara that stole the spotlight. A masterpiece of diamonds and aquamarine, valued at well over £1 million. Its wavy, water-like pattern caught every flicker of candlelight. Elegant, timeless, and unmistakably deliberate. This wasn't just an accessory, it was a statement. Royal watchers noticed it immediately, a bold choice that wasn't approved by the usual palace stylists. And quietly, that choice spoke louder than any official speech. Because the woman who usually dictates these grand fashion moments, Queen Camilla, had no say this time. Sophie's tiara choice wasn't random. The aquamarine stones are known to symbolize calm confidence, clarity, and strength. A subtle but perfect reflection of Sophie herself. She's never been one to grab headlines or stir drama. Yet that night, she didn't need to say a word. Her presence alone sent a clear signal. She wasn't just another supporting royal. She was a power in her own right. And as Camilla watched from across the table, a quiet realization seemed to ripple through the royal circle. This wasn't a mistake. It was a message. But that message carried something even deeper. A hidden layer of symbolism that only a few insiders truly understood. Because the tiara itself has a story of its own. And that story, as we'll see next, reveals exactly why this single piece of jewelry sent shockwaves through Buckingham Palace. At first glance, the aquamarine tiara looked like just another piece from the royal vault, dazzling, historic, and beautifully restored. But royal historians know better. This particular tiara is no ordinary heirloom. It's one of the few convertible designs, a diamond necklace that transforms into a full crown. And that flexibility carries meaning. In royal symbolism, adaptability isn't just aesthetic, it's strategic. For Sophie, that adaptability mirrors her own story. She's learned to move quietly through the ranks, never seeking attention, yet always rising higher. Choosing that piece wasn't coincidence. It was communication. A way of saying, I can change, I can lead, and I don't need anyone's permission to shine. Insiders whispered that the Queen herself, the late Elizabeth II, once admired this tiara's Floyd form, calling it a crown for women who evolve. And now, years later, Sophie was wearing it at the exact moment the royal balance of power felt uncertain. Kate recovering, William carrying the monarchy's weight, and Charles battling health rumors. And Camilla, quietly protective of her new status. Against that backdrop, Sophie's choice suddenly looked far more calculated. It wasn't rebellion. It was reassurance. A reminder that loyalty and quiet strength still hold power inside the House of Windsor. But this wasn't the first time Sophie used elegance as strategy, because long before this glittering night, she had already begun transforming her public image, from royal outsider to one of the most respected figures in the family. And that transformation didn't happen by chance. When Sophie Rice-Jones married Prince Edward in 1999, few imagined she'd one day become one of the most influential women in the royal family. She wasn't born into aristocracy, no blue blood, no royal schooling, just a grounded woman with a PR background and a strong work ethic. At the time, she was often dismissed as ordinary, a commoner, marrying into a centuries-old institution built on hierarchy and status. But Sophie had something the monarchy wasn't used to: subtle intelligence wrapped in patience. She didn't chase headlines or glamour. She built credibility through service, loyalty, and consistency. Over the years, while others courted the media, Sophie quietly mastered diplomacy. She learned how to make the right connections, say the right things, and most importantly, stay out of controversy. Her transformation became undeniable when she took on more international roles, including her emotional visit to Ukraine in 2024, where she met victims of war and represented the crown with genuine compassion. That trip earned her global praise and marked a turning point. She was no longer seen as the Queen's daughter-in-law. She was now the Duchess of Edinburgh, and a key stabilizer in a royal family that often feels fractured. Royal insiders describe her as the quiet glue that holds the institution together, a woman who understands when to speak and when silence carries more weight. And that's exactly what made her tiara moment so powerful. It wasn't random sparkle. It was a statement from someone who had earned the right to make it. But Sophie's rise didn't happen in isolation, because just as she was stepping into her strength, another royal woman was fighting her own battle, and Sophie stood firmly by her side. As the royal spotlight shifted in recent months, one partnership quietly began to reshape the narrative: the growing alliance between Duchess Sophie and Princess Catherine. To the public, it looks like friendship, but to those who know the palace, it's something far more strategic: a graceful partnership built on trust, loyalty, and shared purpose. When Catherine faced her health challenges, Sophie wasn't just a supportive relative, she was a shield. She stepped in at public events, carried engagements with calm authority, and ensured the royal image stayed steady while the future queen recovered. Behind the scenes, insiders say Sophie checked in often, offering comfort as both a friend and a mentor, someone who understood the scrutiny, the pressure, and the constant balancing act of royal life. Over time, the two women began appearing together more frequently. Joint charity appearances, mirrored fashion tones, and a shared aura of quiet dignity. Observers couldn't help but notice how their unity seemed to contrast with Queen Camilla's more traditional and sometimes guarded presence. Together, Catherine and Sophie represent something new: a royal sisterhood built on empathy rather than rank. And in an institution often criticized for coldness, that warmth feels revolutionary. But still, not everyone inside the palace views this alliance as harmless, because as their bond grows stronger, whispers suggest it could subtly shift the balance of influence, especially among the women of the crown. And for Camilla, that's a shift she can't afford to ignore. Inside the gilded halls of Buckingham Palace, Queen Camilla's influence has always been a careful balance: powerful, yet limited. Her ascent to the throne was marked by persistence and patience, but now that patience is being tested. The French state banquet meant to showcase unity, instead exposed quiet divisions. Divisions that even the crown jewels couldn't conceal. As Duchess Sophie's aquamarine tiara shimmered under the chandeliers, Camilla's smile never faltered. But behind that poised expression, palace insiders say was a woman aware that something had shifted, that her silent authority was being challenged, not through words, but through symbolism. For years, Camilla had drawn strength from her access to the royal vaults. From the heirloom necklaces, the historic tiaras, the jewels that once defined the Queen Mother's reign. They weren't just ornaments. They were emblems of status, of control. But the night Sophie stepped out wearing her personal aquamarine tiara, one that bypassed her oversight entirely, the message was unmistakable. There are limits to your reach. Those who followed the monarchy closely recall Queen Elizabeth II's quiet but deliberate structure, a system in which Camilla's influence, though respected, would always stop short of dominating the blood royals. That framework is now coming to life, embodied by women like Princess Anne, Catherine, and Sophie.